I've again seen even an increase in people acknowledging how important culture is in their companies.
Yep.
And they talk about it all the time. They put it in their annual reports, etc. But when you go in and look at the company itself, the culture is not all that healthy. And so it seems to me, particularly with a company called BetterCulture.com, it seems to me logical to start with a question: why are they so off the aspiration they have for their culture vis-a-vis what they actually have?
Right.
What's the reason for that?
Welcome to the Better Culture podcast, where we make the clear connection between better culture and better business. This podcast is for leaders who want to build stronger teams, drive thriving companies, and enjoy your leadership role along the way. Now here's your host, Brett Hoogeveen, a leadership and culture aficionado, keynote speaker, and co-founder of BetterCulture.
All right, we're ready to rock and roll. Today, I'm back with my father and co-founder of BetterCulture, Dr. Kim Hoogeveen, on the podcast today. Excited to have you here, Kim.
Thank you. Nice to have an interviewer who can pronounce my name. That's always good.
I've been practicing for a few years.
All right.
So, yes, absolutely. Hoogeveen, right?
Yeah, or Hoogeveen.
Okay, good. Glad we got that covered. Perfect. Well, today we have you here to cover a topic that you've become kind of famous for, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you know what it is, right?
Well, you told me this morning.
Okay, good. Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about why the gap exists between the culture that people say they want in their businesses and the culture that they actually have. And we'll let you expand on this, but pretty much every organization has a gap between what they'd love to have and what they actually have. The question is just how big that gap is. Everybody wants to be better. That's why we think we have a pretty good name in Better Culture, right? But a little bit of improvement. But today we're going to talk about why that gap exists and what you can do about it. And the reason that I say that you're famous on this topic is you did a TEDx talk quite a few years ago that was called
Why the Gap?
Why the Gap? And so that TEDx talk has, I don't know, last I checked, probably 75,000 views or more on it. For people that really do want to know, why is there this gap? Why can't we close the gap? Why can't we quite achieve the culture that we want? And what does it take to get there? So, Kim, that's my open-ended intro to, so why is there this gap and what can we do about it?
You know, it's when you're doing a TEDx talk, it's usually wise to try to think of something that's sort of not time-bound, that is going to be relevant for a period of time.
True.
And I guess I would tell you that when I first gave that TED Talk, I thought it was relevant. I even think it's more relevant today. And the reason for that is I've again seen even an increase in people acknowledging how important culture is in their companies.
Yep.
And they talk about it all the time. They put it in their annual reports, etc. But when you go in and look at the company itself, the culture is not all that healthy. And so it seems to me, particularly with a company called BetterCulture.com, it seems to me logical to start with a question: why are they so off the aspiration they have for their culture vis-a-vis what they actually have?
Right.
What's the reason for that? And so that really was the underlying question that we started pondering many years ago. And that was the basis for that TED Talk. Now, when you do a TED Talk, you only have like 12 minutes. So you can't go on and on. You got to get pretty condensed.
Which is hard for you.
It is hard for me. Had I more time, that email would have been shorter is absolutely true for me. But it does force you to think more crisply. And so what we decided was relevant 10 years ago, I think is still actually, I'm more convinced it's relevant now because I've worked with more and more companies, and I found out when I go in with this question, okay, there's a gap that exists between what they say they want and what they have. Which is it? Which one of these reasons is causing that gap?
Yeah.
And so that was the foundation of that. And so that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. So everybody we talk to says, yeah, culture matters. Yes, we'd love it to be better. So why isn't it? What are some of the reasons for that gap? Give us reason number one for why that gap exists.
Well, reason number one is somewhat obvious, but it's fairly common. They don't know what to do. Yes, we'd like a better culture. We acknowledge that. And now I have 3 other problems today I need to take care of. I've got something burning over here. I've got an HR issue over here. Oh, I've got an issue with a supplier over here. Now, I see them again a month from now, and they say, oh, yeah, we still want to do that. I don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. I get that it's important, but I don't know how to really fix it.
Right. So it's a knowledge issue. It's not knowing what to do. Yeah, I want it to be better. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to improve it.
And so you'd say, well, why don't they go out and find somebody to help them? Mm-hmm. Well, a couple reasons. Number one, they're so darn busy. They never really, it's on their list, but it never goes to the top of the priority list to try and secure some support to help us be able to effectively address culture, build a healthy culture. Okay. That's one of the reasons. And then there's another practical one. I don't mean this as a sales pitch, but I guess it is. They don't know who to go to.
Right. Yeah.
What won't work is, well, I ran into a book and I looked over that I was coming back on a flight and I found a book. I'm going to have all my executives read that and see if we'll do that for the next. Right. It's called bibliotherapy. And they jump from thing to thing to thing, trying to chase this culture.
Book of the Month Club.
Book of the Month Club.
Yeah.
That not only does it not work, but after about your 4th book, people get really cynical. Oh, geez, what now are we doing?
Right.
So what we work with is we need to help our clients have a more comprehensive plan so they have confidence that they know what they're doing and the sequence of what they're doing.
Yeah, so a strategy, to actually do. Love that.
That's number one.
Number one. All right, go. What's number 2?
Number 2 is kind of the polar opposite. They think they know how to fix culture, and they're pretty confident, but they don't actually know what they're doing.
Yes.
Sometimes this is called arrogance. I prefer, because leadership is difficult to measure, Brett, what happens is many of us conclude that we have a lot of leadership ability.
Yes.
In psychology, it's called illusory superiority.
Okay, psychology hat just came on.
There we go. Illusory superiority. So if I were to ask someone if they can sing, and they can't carry a tune in a bucket, it's very unlikely they'll say they can sing.
Right.
Because they know we could say, well, sing a few bars.
Right.
It's easy to notice. It's easy to measure whether someone can sing or not. It's easy to measure whether you have good foot speed or not. So people usually don't exaggerate those kind of abilities. But when you talk about things like leadership that's difficult to measure, people will often, let's say, be overly confident in their ability to lead.
Yeah.
You see this with something like teaching ability as well. One of my favorite stats is at one of the local universities, they did a survey, and 83% of the faculty said they had well above average teaching skills.
Really? That must be a very prestigious university.
Isn't that amazing? The truth is average means 50% of them are below average. But it's difficult to measure teaching ability, so people will just give themselves perhaps more credit than they deserve.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard a similar statistic about if anybody's listening to this podcast and they want to challenge this, rate your own driving skills. Would you say that you are an above average driver? Most people right now, if you're being honest, are probably raising your hand and you're going, everybody else out there is a bunch of lunatics, but not me. Right? Well, not every, 90, I believe about 94% of people think that they're an above average driver.
Yes.
And so that can't be true, right?
Yes.
Half of you are below average drivers.
That is what average
Not
means.
our listeners. I could believe our listeners are maybe a bit above average. So, love that. Okay, that was number 2. So we've covered that they don't know what to do or they're just too busy. That was number 1. Number 2 is they think they know what to do, but they don't. Right?
Correct.
They have high confidence in training programs or processes or core values they're super proud of or things. And honestly, they're just not getting much juice out of what they're doing. Right?
Illusory superiority.
Yes.
Can I get that in your vocabulary, Brett?
Illusory superiority.
There you go.
I like it. All right. So what's number 3?
Number 3 is they don't know they have a gap. And you see this with companies that, as I said, they just don't get out much. If you have gone to your local playhouse and enjoyed the evening, you can think that's a phenomenal production. If you've never been to Broadway, it looks great. A local ski hill can look pretty good if you've never been to Colorado. So what happens is they exaggerate how good they think their culture is vis-a-vis the competition out there because they haven't really ever experienced a phenomenal culture.
So they're not exaggerating it. They're just unaware how big the gap how good it could be. They don't really know. They don't have an adequate comparison.
Their scale, if you're grading their scale, they're thinking this is an A, when in fact, if you took a more accurate sense of competition out there, they're actually at a B- or C+.
Okay, that makes sense. I agree with that one.
That's number 3.
Okay, number 3. What comes after 3?
4 comes after 3.
Oh, all right. Is there a 4th then? Hit me with number 4.
There is a 4th. Okay. This is one that I see I'd say perhaps most often. And they think they want a terrific culture. They say they want a terrific culture. And then they run into someone like you or myself or our clients that comes in and visits with them a while after collecting some information about their organization. And we start talking with them about, well, this is what it would take to go to phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Well, after you start listing, we would suggest you take a look at your evaluation system, maybe how you're doing your new staff orientation, maybe even your recruitment criteria. Let's take a look at who you're choosing to promote into supervisory roles and what kind of training you're giving them. Let's take a look at what you've done with your executive team to make sure it's functioning well at the top. And we probably could take a look at least at your compensation approach. The point is, we get at some point they say, well, okay, whoa.
Right.
We're not doing all that.
Yeah.
And to which I say, look, that's okay, but you should probably stop claiming that you are determined to have a phenomenal culture. Because one of the things, and it sounds so trite and so straightforward, so simple, but if you want a great culture, it starts with you have to really want a great culture.
Yes. Yeah, you got to want it. I 100% agree with that. For anybody who's listening that thinks, well, Kim, you just went through, that would be an unbelievable amount of work to think about and restructure all those different things that you said. I guess one counter to that I want to at least mention is that doesn't all have to be done in a week or a month or a year, right? That if you will just make a little bit of progress this week and a little bit of progress next week and just really have a continuous improvement mindset around your culture, people can control the pacing of that, right? It doesn't need to be a hustle to make a whole bunch of change. This could be a 5-year plan, right? Of how do we make some steady, slow, moderate changes that won't feel like a lot of change immediately. But when you look back after 18 months or 3 years or 5 years, you kind of won't believe how much progress you've made. Do you agree with that?
Brett, they not only can control it, they need to control it.
Yeah.
With some of our best clients, it may surprise people to know that we actually have to slow them down to say, look, I know you're all fired up about this afternoon, but tomorrow you're going to have 6 other things that I know are going to have your attention and address it. So and it sounds a little highfalutin, but it really is true. What we would like to have them do is to get a strategic plan for cultural health. That over time, we can address various things, but we put it in a logical order, and they know we're doing A because at the right time we're going to review B, and we're going to implement C at this time. But you're absolutely right. Culture is built on the aggregate gains of small things.
Yeah.
And that's the focus we want to get that executive team on, that we're not going to do all this tomorrow, but we do want to say among the things we have to prioritize, this is something we're going to consistently look at and make consistent progress. Yeah. That's how you get to terrific.
Yeah. Culture has to be a priority. And the big thing that I want to emphasize on that front is a consistent priority, because if it just feels like a priority at a moment in time, and you say, yeah, we want to make a few changes or improvements or things to develop, and then you get busy or priorities shift, oftentimes you don't even make those moderate changes that you just need to do consistently over time. And so it needs to be a priority. You've got to care. And on that note, I know we talked ahead of time, and you mentioned that you might be open to sharing a very unique experience that we had quite a few years back now, working with an executive, a top executive for a very large company that we probably won't name, that was really invested in culture, really cared, and wanted to make sure that he could push change across a really big system. Now that I've done a big buildup, we probably have to tell the story.
Yeah, I think we should.
Would you like to tell that story?
Yeah, you can help because you were with me.
Yeah.
He got a great deal on this. I was asked to do
I did get a great deal on this trip.
I was asked to do a keynote for a group of 60 global leaders. This is an international company, and they were bringing their top 60 people from around the world together in Rome.
Top 60 of more than 100,000 employees globally.
Yes,
We're getting together in Rome, Italy. Yes.
And they I'm still kind of dumbfounded. They flew Brett and I out there for me to do a 45-minute keynote speech. It's a long way to go for 45 minutes. And Brett got the greatest deal of all because he finagled himself that Dr. Hoogeveen needed an assistant, and all Brett really did was load the slides.
Yep, plug in the laptop, make sure the clicker's working. That was my, Kim didn't really even let me carry a suitcase. So it was my only duty, and it was a great 3-day trip.
But, we won't mention the company, and I will just say that the egos of these 60 people were gigantic. And you could tell it as soon as we got there the day before, and they were having a social gathering, and we kind of went down and wanted to get a lay of the land. And, I'm ex-company in charge of Saudi Arabia. I'm ex-company in charge of France. I've got Australia. It was all that.
National presidents from all around the world, right? That ran an entire, division.
Average, I would say average age, early 60s.
Yep.
Certainly an older group, largely male group. I think there were 4 or 5 females. All the rest were males. But I knew that when you're going to be a speaker, you kind of size up the audience. And I thought, well, this is a pretty, to say the least, confident group. We won't say arrogant. We'll just say very confident group that I was going to be speaking with. The CEO who had talked to me before and asked me to come and do this, I ran into him at that social gathering, and I said, John, I'm thinking I'm going to tone this back a little bit. I was going to be pretty assertive on this culture stuff, and maybe that with this group, maybe I should be a little softer. And he said, no. I know what you guys do. I know what you think. I know what you say. I want them to hear that directly. And I said, okay. So I came down. The
speaker's dilemma. Do you please the audience, or do you please the guy who's hiring you?
I please the guy who is signing the check.
Yes,
is what I decided.
Yes, exactly.
We go with that. I work for him. So I came down the next day, and Brett had the slides up. He did his job, and I did my 45 minutes. And I would, you do enough of it, you can kind of tell how it's going over. And it was, I would say, my grading system, it was a C maybe, because there was about a third that were leaning in and nodding and seemed to be really enjoying it and getting it. About a third who were leaning back with their arms folded, not particularly buying much of this. And then about a third that were kind of, I think, looking at the paper, thinking where they were going to take their spouse for dinner that night. They weren't even really paying much attention.
Yeah.
So anyway, I got done. And
the talk was all about why culture is essential to business, right? Why you got to make this a top priority. And these were financial people, and they thought, well, yeah, dollars are the most important thing, right?
Yes, but the message was also there's many things that can come bottom up in a company, but not this.
Right.
This has to come top down. You in this room have to be committed to the importance of this and make it come to life for your employees.
Right.
That's the message he wanted me to deliver, which I did. At the end, I got, the polite golf kind of clap, okay, fine. So I went over.
I was cheering big time on the side.
I had one person. It was my son. I went over and talked to John afterwards and said, well, I hope that it went kind of okay. And he said, no, it's exactly what I want, And I really was kind of confused because it didn't feel that great to me. And he said, did my staff not tell you what we're doing? I said, John, they just asked me to come out and give this speech. He said, oh my goodness. He said, follow me. And Brett and I followed him down a hallway in this beautiful hotel in Rome into a huge area. I didn't even know it was back there. Huge area. Probably not quite the length of a football field, but it was big with a huge high ceilings. And in this area, John had set up 6 pup tents, little tents that could hold maybe, I don't know, Brett, 12, 15 people in there probably.
Yeah, easily.
And they were spread out around this big area. And there were 6 young people. And I say young, they were all, I would say, between 20 and 28 kind of thing. Sure. It was a little group of people. And he said, hey, come over here, guys. And they all saw who it was, the CEO. And they ran right over. And they said, tell Kim and Brett what you're doing tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Well, it was fascinating. He had brought 6 employees from around the world, didn't know each other, young employees who had had a terrible work experience for this company. One was a young woman who'd became pregnant shortly after she started, and just the difficulty she had and no accommodation. Another was a young man that got sent out on his own in a very complicated situation to handle with no support from above.
Highly litigated, high pressure, high stress. Yeah.
It was just, and he said, tomorrow, those 60 people you just talked to, Kim, I'm dividing them into 6 groups of 10. And they're going to come into this room, and each of those groups of 10 are going to go into one of these pup tents. And I'm going to tell them, you're not going to speak.
Telling those top executives, this is not your session.
You will go in and you're going to listen to these stories. And he said every 5 minutes, he had kind of a horn that he's going to blow, and they go to the next tent, the next tent, the next tent. So over about 45 minutes, they were going to hear these 6 stories from these young people. Mm-hmm. And he said, Kim, then I'm going to bring them back into that room where you just talked. And on the screen, there's going to be just one thing, and it says 34%. And he said, Kim, we are losing 34% of every hiring group we bring into the company inside of 18 months.
And these were highly in-demand employees. These were highly skilled college graduates in very competitive marketplace.
And he said, we simply cannot survive as a company unless we get this fixed. And the people in this room need to take accountability and get it fixed. And I'm going to tell them, none of our employees are ever going to again experience what those 6 young people did, and I'm holding you accountable. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying, John, some of these people probably aren't going to love that. And he smiled and he said, and they won't be working here a year from now.
Yeah.
Now and we tell that story, Brett, because it's such a great example. Mm-hmm. There's an executive who really wanted to get this right.
Planned an entire experience for his top people, focusing on nothing but employee experience.
And that won't get him a great culture, but what it does is it stops the leak in the boat.
Yeah.
It's stopping the disastrous stuff that's going on inside your company. It's usually good to stop. If you want to get healthy, you might stop shooting yourself in the foot every morning. But it was such a wonderful example. And this makes me smile a little bit. The last part of that story, I found out subsequent to that John was planning to retire in about a year. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, it was an extremely noble thing he was doing to say, I need to get this cleaned up on my watch, mm-hmm. so my successor can come into a much healthier situation. And if people are going to be upset and I have to change some things, I'm going to get it changed on my watch.
Absolutely.
But it's a great example. He really wanted a great culture.
Yeah, and that was your 4th piece, right?
Correct.
I think I got the counting correct. Number 4 is you got to care. You got to actually mean it when you say culture matters. And you have to be willing to take on conflict, to make change, to keep it a priority, right? To not just say, well, yeah, it'd be nice, but we've got other important priorities.
Absolutely. And you've got to hold your own supervisors accountable for protecting that culture that you want.
Yeah.
If there's no consequence, again, this isn't the type of thing you can have a big event and declare,
Yes.
We're going to put it on our
Yes.
stationery and hope something will happen and continue to happen. Humans just don't work that way.
I think that may be the biggest misconception and perhaps a big differentiator between what we do and our approach to culture and what unfortunately gives culture this squishy reputation out there is we are realists and rationalists and statistical thinkers. When you say, if you want to have a great place to work, yeah, you can do some education and some rah-rah and some stuff that teaches skills on how to build it up. You also can just rid a company of people that are tearing it down and be much more intentional about who's not a fit here and really have high standards on that front.
You do go forward by subtraction
Yes.
sometimes.
Yep.
And that's just really, and if you can't subtract them, if they have too much specialized knowledge, at least isolate them.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't want too many people working from home, but that guy can work from home.
Well, I don't want to go on this too long, and I didn't plan on this, but I wonder if that might be the biggest difference between leaders who are showing that they care and those that are not showing that they care about culture is, are you holding people accountable that are hurting the culture?
Well, and Brett, the thing that is frustrating a little bit to me is a lot of times people will change their behavior if you simply address it.
Yeah, talk about it.
Yeah.
Have a
Set
consequence.
your expectations.
Yeah.
We say leadership is either coaching or parenting. In our company, it's coaching or parenting. This, in my mind, falls into the realm of great parenting. A couple things, if you want to just say how to get started in this thing when we're starting with clients. I think it's helpful to make sure you are aware of the health of your culture. And we said one of the reasons people don't go is they really don't know exactly the gap they might have.
Yeah, we've said there's this gap, and I guess, tell us, what's the simplest thing that someone could do to get started on closing that gap? Where is the right place to start?
I think two things. Number one, I would say, is make sure you have an accurate measure. And there's good surveys out there. I happen to think our BetterCulture survey is the best I've ever seen. We created it because we wanted to have something that would give a great global measure as well as be able to look inside of individual teams.
Yep.
So a survey is, I think, a good idea.
Culture survey, employee engagement survey, really get an accurate measure of where your culture is today.
It gives you a baseline also to see how we're doing. And then another thing that I think a lot of places miss that I would recommend is to take your executive team, whatever you call it, leadership team, executive team, on a retreat. I don't care if you take them out, but the point is have a retreat where we can focus them for at least a full day on putting together this strategic plan for cultural health.
Yes.
And it is so difficult to build culture if the executive team is not on board. Now, I want to make sure I'm clear on this. I don't mean that each of your executive team members have to know everything about culture and spend, a third of their time driving culture. It's not what I'm saying. But they need to understand what the plan is, and they need to be supportive of the efforts we make to build and protect culture, because there's so much that comes because of the power that comes with their title.
Yeah.
Just small indications from them that they're supportive of this bleeds down through the organization and builds the cultural health of that bloodstream. So getting that executive team on board, getting their perceptions to make sure the plan we put together makes sense from their perspectives, I think is vitally important and incredibly helpful, because now the CEO or the head of HR, who's ever driving this, is not alone. They've got the rest of the top leadership people at least aware and hopefully somewhat invested in the importance of this effort.
Absolutely. If you want to see change, if you want to see that gap closed, you have to have alignment from the top and commitment that this is a priority for the organization, right? Being supportive of the plans that we are putting in place to make steady and consistent progress. I completely agree. On that note, for anybody who's listening, this is something we are doing quite a bit with BetterCulture as a great starting place with organizations, is starting with executive teams and helping them build a strategic plan for cultural health via a retreat. And so much so that we have a dedicated page on our website. If you go to betterculture.com and you look for executive retreats on the service dropdown, you'll see some information there about what we do. We have a free giveaway that is sort of the ultimate guide to planning a great executive offsite, executive retreat. And it's general. It's not just about culture retreats. It's sort of everything that you might need to know about planning a great offsite. Yes. And you'll find that on that page. We have a specific URL that I don't know off the top of my head, and we will try to put that in the show notes if you just want to jump straight to that guide. But if you're interested in exploring a little bit of what would a retreat with my top team specifically focused on culture, what would that look like? Just go to betterculture.com. Hit the drop down for executive retreats, and we've got some great info on there. And if you're interested, you'll find that guide as a free resource there as well. It's a great place to start.
And Brent, I know we're probably running long on this one, but I'm going to push you on a question for a minute.
Sure.
Once we get that strategic plan put together, would you mind talking a little bit, just quickly, about the 5 areas where we break down the planning on this cultural strategic plan?
I'd love to. That's a hot topic for me.
It's your design.
Yeah. Well, when we work with organizations, it's so important to be able to have clear and delineated segments that you are thinking about. How are we continuously improving our employee experience and culture? And we break it down into 5 areas. We think every company should have a plan for how they're building their culture in 5 specific areas. And the first of those areas is the health and commitment of their executive team. Right? Are those executives, do they agree culture is a priority? Are they aligned? Are they functioning well as a team? And are they individually growing as leaders that know how to support this culture we're trying to build? So what are you doing to drive continuous improvement with your executive team? The second piece is the biggest pie piece that makes an immediate impact on employee experience, and that's leaders, just managers across the organization. do you have a plan for what you're doing to upskill managers? We believe you should at least have a mission in your organization that says, wouldn't it be great if every employee reported to a fantastic supervisor? Now, that's a very lofty goal.
I think that is perhaps one of the central things, if we could get people to embrace that our employees should not, the likelihood of them having a great supervisor should not be determined by dumb luck.
Right.
There should actually be a purposeful intent that we're going to have our employees all report to a terrific supervisor. You'll never fully get there, but it is a wonderful goal to have.
So the second of our 5 pie pieces is show me what you are doing to tell me that 3 months from now, your managers will be more effective leaders. They'll be better at building healthy teams within their purview, their part of the organization. And if you're not doing something to improve those skill sets, that's 50 to 70% of an employee's entire sort of perception of their organization is how do they feel about their manager and their team.
Okay, right? That's 2. You got the executive team and you got all managers. What's
Number 3 is, are you improving your HR and people operations systems and processes such that they deliver better results and people have better experiences? Everything from onboarding process to evaluations, comp models, benefits, communication platforms, just the stuff that has to happen inside of organizations. Are those processes improving in a way that it supports your goals of building a healthier culture? Okay, a ton of stuff under there.
We get HR in shape. Now what? Number 4.
Fourth one is, do you have a plan for building your next wave of leaders? Are you investing in emerging leaders? Are you empowering people who want to be culture champions, who maybe aren't leaders yet, to grab the reins and get going? So show me a plan for that. And then last is the 5th pie piece is, what can we do immediately to just improve either the skill sets, the attitudes, or the daily work experience for every employee? Is there something we could do this month, this quarter, next quarter that will make a noticeable impact on just the daily employee experience that every employee has across the organization? And so a strategic plan for culture has some type of a plan to make progress in all 5 of those areas.
Wonderful. Nicely summed up.
Yeah. Well, perfect. Thanks, guys. That's all. Kim, I'll give you a chance to make a closing comment if you want, but that's all I have for this podcast about why the gap exists, and what organizations and leaders can do to close it.
Only closing comment would be, we have found that when people implement these plans, Brett, and you're doing initiative A, B, C, D, it is very helpful if they have a specific individual or group designated to drive that initiative, so we know who's accountable, that'll actually get done.
Yes.
And if they don't have that internally as well, that's something we do as BetterCulture, and we become their reminder or their driver for those various initiatives, so that it doesn't get lost in just the morass of running a business every day.
Agree.
Thanks
Kim,
for having me.
Thanks for coming in. I appreciate all of our listeners. Thank you guys for the support. Please follow us on socials. Please subscribe. Please let people know that we're doing this. Our mission is to make the world a better place to work. And so the more that we can pursue that mission, if you can help us spread the word, we can fulfill more of what we're here to do. So thanks, Kim. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Want to take the next step to building a stronger culture? We're offering a free 15-minute BetterCulture strategy call directly with me. We'll take the time to help you identify real opportunities to make your workplace better. No sales pitch, just real advice to help you lead better. Grab your time right now at betterculture.com/free call. Let's make something even better together.